that we're live. I think we are. Just as I'm doing this, welcome. Hope everyone's had a great Friday and a great week for that matter. And yes, we are live. Great. Okay. So, welcome everyone to another update. My name's Jeremy Maloney. I'm the director and producer of Capo. It's a feature film that's currently in development, which we're fundraising for. And for those who are just tuning in, basically what I do on this live is I break down some parts of the film, give an update on what we're working on at the moment, and give people some insight into behind the scenes of the project to get a better understanding. And if people want to get involved, they can certainly find out how. So this is sort of a continuation from what we were talking about last time, which was more around the story and the central ideas of the film. So where we talked about the story in the last one, this is going to be how it's experienced by the audience. So we're going to be covering off on some of the visual components, the editing style, and also the music, which is music is actually quite a critical one, just generally for film, but especially for this one, given that the main character is a pianist, right? So music is not only thematically and narratively embedded into the film, it's also plays a role in how we experience it. So without further ado, if I share my screen like that, we can see. So yeah, this is a continuation of the mood Bob was seeing. The kind of frames you're seeing at the moment is, if you recall from the last live, we're talking about how Alexander commits to acting out the perfect murder. So the kind of visual parts that you're seeing now falls quite in the center of the story when Alexander is taking that step, and it becomes much more dark, much more gritty in the visual style. I want to talk a bit about performances, because this film, I always say to people when I'm talking about it, it really comes down to the characters. It's extremely character driven. Alexander is in practically every scene in the film, so that's a critical performance. But it's the relationships between all the characters which really is what makes this story so great. And so a lot of time has been spent dissecting the characters. I've not only done this myself as the writer, but with the review process that we've done with the screenplay, I've had the pleasure of working with people to consult on the screenplay as well, who've been paramount in bringing together or bringing to life the characters. Because at the end of the day, I think there's a saying when you do writing, like the first draft, they're like strangers. The second draft, they're like acquaintances, and the third draft, they start to become friends, and then from further there, they become like family. So these characters do mean a lot to me, and even the ones that are a bit more dubious. So in saying that, the way they're brought to life through the performances and the actors we decide to cast in those roles is critical. And for those who've worked with me in the past, would understand that I like to spend a lot of time with the actors before we're even getting to the production phase, just to flesh out what their characters are like, and then also more importantly how we can work together, because every actor is different. How they approach something will always be different. So us lining up on the same page is really, really important. So the approach I tend to go for and will go for with Capo is a more like naturalistic and authentic approach, and just bringing out that rawness, because at the end of the day, the subject matter is highly uh, emotive and rich. So we want to treat that with the respect that it deserves. In terms of the cinematography, this is the part that is not just about capturing what we're seeing as far as the performances. It's about actually creating a an experience in itself. So the camera, because of the way that we view things through our eyes, the camera can really act like another character in a way. So what we're aiming to do is to translate the screenplay with its roller coaster of emotions, if I can use that term, and the visual style that we're using. So even down to the composition and the camera movement, a lot of this film is going to be moving from periods of calmness, which depending, I don't know if it's flipped for you guys, but on the right hand side of the screen is very calm and serene, and then also in the moments when there's dread and panic, such as when Alexander is in this state of mind, it's going to be reflected in the camera. So it's going to be much more rapid movement, and the lighting's going to be much more dark and gritty to reflect that psychological state. So really, what we're doing with the cinematography is just reflecting the essentially the psychological state of Alexander, because we're seeing the world through his eyes. So again, here's some more frames, and these are more like I said, the more solemn, contemplative types of scenes, especially the scenes between Alexander and Dion, because these scenes with these two characters together are very much around discovery and learning. So that's the kind of atmosphere we'll be creating. The production design. So for those who aren't familiar with that term, that's essentially all the elements that you put into the frame. So it really comes down to two disciplines that Alexander have. One is law, and the other is music. So both these disciplines have a very structured state of order. So that's going to be reflected in the production design. So we're surrounded or thrust into a world that is very performative. So you know, in terms of musical performance, but then also Alexander, which I'll explain in another live as well, is put into the world of arts. So a lot of scenes take place in a theater, and are also, like I said, between himself and Dion in that musical world. So what we're doing is by having these sorts of elements within the frame or within the film, where I guess highlighting the times when there isn't that state of order. So when Alexander is in that psychological state of dread and panic, that's where this starts to be stripped away. So again, we want to keep in that vein of arts and culture. So we're going to pay a lot of attention to detail to what we put into the frame in that sense. So these are more our theatre scenes. So like I mentioned before, a lot of this film, probably if I were to guess, probably about a quarter of it takes place within different theatres, but at least a theatre. Now, the edit is something I really want to talk a bit more about, because it relates in a lot of ways to the title. So the title of the film being "Da Capo," for those who are musically inclined will already know what that means. For those of you who aren't, it's an Italian term, but it's used in music to mean to go back to the beginning. So this has a double meaning. In actually some ways, it has a triple meaning, but let's keep it at a double. It has a double meaning for this film. The first being obviously relating to the musical element. Alexander's a pianist. And the second is that this film structurally is told in a circular plot. So the beginning of the film is the same as the end of the film. So we circle the way back. But to go a layer deeper, because Alexander's learning this piece, the Goldberg Variations by Bach, and Dion is teaching him this, what we've actually done is we've structured the film to follow the structure of all the variations. So it's a little bit of a way to subtly suggest that continuous motif and that continuous theme of this return. So this circular return. So that's it at a macro level, how the edit's going to go. On a micro level, like I was much similar to, or very similarly to the cinematography, what we're doing is in the slow, contemplative, and meditative uh, times in the film will be a much slower place edit with fewer cuts and allowing us to just breathe in the shots that are coming on screen. And then when we're in that state of panic, in that more erratic stage of the film, the edit's going to reflect that. So very fast cuts and very jarring types of cutting that you would see, like say for instance in a like a thriller or a horror film, which this does in elements fall into that style of thriller for sure. And lastly, the score. So since this is a very classically focused film, it makes sense for it to be the score to be in very much a classical style. So oscillating between moments of contemplation, passion, and then ultimately dread as the story unfolds for Alexander. So as you can see, there's beyond the actual story, which is at the heart of what makes this a compelling film. How the audience is going to experience it is if not equally more important, because film is a medium that goes beyond the written word. It's something that we're experiencing without language. So these elements are the parts that operate beyond that language level. So it's what makes film the unique medium it is. So thanks for those who tuned in, and I will be back for another live. Next, probably going to go over a bit more around the commercial aspect of this film, which I haven't yet touched on. But for now, that should suffice for covering off on the basic fundamentals of number one, what the story is and how the story is going to play out as well. Thank you.